Hello, friend. Let's continue our conversation where we are talking about mindfulness in the middle of real life. And I don't mean the version of mindfulness where everything is calm and quiet, aesthetically pleasing, and perfectly arranged. I mean mindfulness in the messy moments. Hello, and welcome to Torches Yoga and Mindfulness. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Lauren, and I'll be your coach. If you're curious about mindfulness, healing, and practical habits that actually work, you're in the right place. Because here we focus on simple but powerful practices grounded in ancient wisdom and modern science to care for both our minds and bodies. So make sure you hit the like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. If you caught the May Mindful Check In, we asked ourselves, what is it we are carrying into this new month? Today, we're going to take it a little bit further, a little bit deeper, because a lot of us want to be mindful, but sometimes it feels like our brains are fighting us on it. The moment we try, things start to get foggy or scattered, or our brain's just like, I'm done. And it's easy for us to turn that frustration into some deeper meaning about ourselves. Like we must be failing at mindfulness or not consistent enough, or there's the frustrations that we're not already there yet. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is psychology. A stressed system literally changes how attention, memory, and emotional regulation work, and it makes mindfulness harder through no fault of our own. So, today we're going to look at what overwhelm does to the nervous system, why it feels like our minds won't cooperate, where it shows up first in the body and our behavior, and most importantly, what's still possible even when we are at our capacity. All right, first big truth. Mindfulness becomes harder not because we're doing something wrong, but because stress temporarily hijacks the exact same circuits that mindfulness relies on. And there are three main shifts that happen. First, our attention becomes narrow and scattered. When we're stressed, the brain automatically goes into threat scanning mode. It's trying to protect us. So instead of being able to rest your attention on your breath or your senses, your attention keeps looking for what's wrong, what's next, or what could fall apart. This isn't a personal flaw, it's biology doing its job. The second shift is our working memory. Now, that's the part of our brain that helps us to hold instructions and stay with a task. Well, it gets smaller. This is why you may forget the practice halfway through. Or you start breathing with awareness and then you suddenly remember an email or a bill or a problem that you haven't solved yet. Your brain simply has less bandwidth and it still wants to be in that threat scanning mode to keep us safe. And third, our emotional regulation dips. When stress hormones rise, the emotional centers of the brain get louder and the regulating centers get slower. So big emotions feel bigger, irritations feel sharper, and sadness or worry feel heavier. And when we add trying to be mindful pressure inside all of that, it can feel almost impossible. So if you've been frustrated with yourself, if you've thought, I know what to do, but I can't do it right now, please hear me. Your system hasn't lost the skill, it's just overwhelmed. Let's break this down a little bit more because understanding what's happening helps to dissolve the shame and the self criticism we hold. Attention under a heavy load tends to do two things. It either locks onto the thing that feels urgent, or it jumps around trying to find the source of threat. This is survival attention, not mindful attention. It's not designated for presence, it's designated for protection. Memory under a heavy load makes it harder to hold on to your place in a practice. You may start with an intention and then instantly forget it. You may lose the thread of what you're doing, even mid breath. Again, this is normal. Your system is reallocating its resources to deal with the perceived pressure. And then we have the emotions under a heavy load, which has its own rules. Everything feels closer to the surface. We may cry faster, react faster, shut down faster. Even small things can feel like too much. This isn't about weakness. This is what every human body does when demand outweighs capacity. The mindfulness isn't broken, the condition just changed. I want to introduce a simple model that helps us understand overwhelm from the inside out. It has three layers: the body, mind, and behavior. Layer 1 is the body. The body always reacts first. Before we think a single thought, the body has already shifted into activation. You may notice an increased heart rate, tight shoulders, shallow breathing, stomach tension, heat in your face or your chest, cold hands, or restlessness. This is where overwhelm starts, not in the thoughts, but in the body, in our physiology. When the body fires up, the mind follows. Layer 2, the mind. This is where we see rumination, catastrophizing, those looping thoughts, irritability, and not being able to think clearly. The mind interprets the body's activation as evidence that something must be wrong, and then it tries to solve it, fix it, explain it, or escape it. But because the system is already stressed, clarity gets harder to access. And then we have layer 3, our behavior. This is the visible layer, what we do or what we avoid. Overwhelm in our behavior can look like procrastination, over explaining, fidgeting, canceling plans, snapping at someone, shutting down, endless phone scrolling, hyper cleaning, or avoiding everything altogether. All these are just behaviors, and behavior is simply the body and mind expressing the load they're carrying in an outward fashion. When we map these layers, we stop making overwhelm something moral or personal. It becomes understandable and even predictable because we're just human. So, really, we kind of already know all of this, even if we can't articulate it sometimes. But this is the part most people don't know. Even when you feel completely overwhelmed, even when calm is nowhere in sight and you can't even manage to focus on one full breath, there are still things that work. Not deep meditations, no full practices, but just small openings your system can still access. That may look like a micro orientation. When you look around the room slowly and let your eyes land on a few neutral or pleasant objects, you're using your built-in safety mechanism. This visual system is tightly connected to the fight or flight centers of the brain. When we're overwhelmed, our eyes narrow, scanning for threat. Orientation reverses that cue. It tells the brain, we're not in danger, you can downshift. You don't need deep presence, you don't need slow breathing. You just need your eyes, and the nervous system will listen. Another tool we can turn to is labeling. We've talked about this one before, and it is a great tool to pull out at any time. Saying, I'm overwhelmed, might sound too simple, but this is one of the most well-researched stress reducers we have. When we put language to an emotional or physical sensation, activity in the emotional centers of the brain decreases. It doesn't solve the feeling, it just lowers the intensity enough that we can breathe again. Labeling also interrupts the swirl of mental narration. It takes you from the I'm drowning in this to my system is overloaded right now. And that shift turns a storm into something manageable and workable. We're not trying to change the emotion, we're giving it a container. And then we also have body level resets. These tiny physical adjustments work because the body is the entry point to regulation, not the mind. It might look like unclenching your jaw or dropping your shoulders down, a deep, slow exhale, or shaking out your hands, or placing both hands on your ribs. Each one of these sends a different version of the threat is lowering message to the nervous system. A long exhale activates the parasympathetic side of our vagus nerve. Loosening big tension areas signals that the body is shifting out of bracing mode. And touching ribs adds proprioceptive input, which grounds you without requiring focus. These aren't grounding practices in the traditional sense. They're micro shifts that change the physiological channel your system is broadcasting on. When your brain can't cooperate, your body can still lead. We can also ground using one sense at a time. When the system is overloaded, attention splinters. Multi-sensory grounding becomes too demanding. But one sense grounding, choosing just one sound or a texture or just a taste, asks almost nothing from your attention. It gives our mind a single anchor, not something skillful and complicated or perfect, just a simple one. And that's enough. What this does is reduce cognitive load. We're not tracking breath plus sensation plus thought. We're giving our system one clean channel to tune into, which pulls us out of the mental spiral just enough to feel a slight shift. Even the smallest shift matters when you're overloaded. Bottom line, when you're fried, the nervous system isn't closed or just stuck in panic. It's just a little less available. And these micro practices aren't meant to fix everything. They're meant to lower the intensity a notch so that the next moment becomes more workable. We don't force calm. We create small openings for it to come back. And those openings are enough to begin shifting the system back towards its center. And the big takeaway here is that your nervous system isn't failing at mindfulness. It's working overtime. And mindfulness during overwhelm looks different, smaller, simpler, more compassionate. All right, friend, before you go, take one deep inhale and an even deeper exhale, relaxing your brow, jaw, and shoulders. In our next video, we're going to build on this by talking about decision fatigue, why it hits so hard when we're already stressed, and how to find clarity even when the mind feels overwhelmed. So make sure you're subscribed. Friend, thank you so much for sharing a piece of your day with me. Stay present, stay kind to yourself, and I will see you soon.